Good evening, everybody. Could we call the meeting to order, please? And I'm going to read the public hearing notice. The Town of Abington Zoning Board of Appeals will hold a public hearing on Thursday, December 16th, 2021, at 7 p.m. at the Abington Town Offices, 500 Glenowitz Way, Abington, on the petition of Limited Dividend Affiliate of WP East Acquisitions, LLC, 91 Hartwell Avenue, Lexington, Massachusetts, for a comprehensive permit under Mass General Laws, Chapter 40B. This permit is to construct a 236 residential units on the consolidated lands described above. The project will include the construction of 3 4-story residential buildings with a clubhouse, amenity area, and associated parking and infrastructure. The current woodlands will be removed. The paved travelway would remain in place with additional improvements and continue to provide service access to the Abington MBTA commuter rail station and parking lot. The property is located on Assessors Map 24 and 17, Lot 112 and Lot 11A in the TOD zone. This application is available for public review at the Town Clerk's office. Andrew Burbine, Chairman, Zoning Board of Appeals. So we have the petitioners here, correct?
Correct.
Anybody speaking? Anybody in particular speaking? Or,
We're all going to speak. I'm going to start with,
who wants to go first then?
if it's ready, I will speak.
Okay. Just your name and address, please.
Yes, so my name is Mark Seck. Thank you, Chair and members of the board. Like I said, my name is Mark Seck. I am a Vice President of Development here at Wood Partners on behalf of the applicant WP East Acquisitions LLC, which is an affiliate of Wood Partners. Wood Partners, if you're not familiar with Wood Partners, we are a national apartment community builder based in Atlanta. We build Class A, we specialize in Class A apartment communities throughout the country. We are one of the largest apartment community builders in all of the country, consistently ranked within the top 5. Since our founding in 1997, we've completed over 60,000 apartment communities. We are a fully integrated real estate firm, and what that means is we're not only the developer, we're also the general contractor, as well as the property manager. So unlike some other developers who may just develop and get out, we stay with the property from inception through lease up and stabilization, and stay with the property. I think that's really important, and it helps keep our interests aligned. We opened the Boston office locally here, which is up in Lexington, back in 2008. We've completed over 3,000 units in Massachusetts alone, primarily in suburban towns such as in Abington. I apologize. I know it's, would it be more helpful, and I apologize to the board, would it be more helpful if I stood over there, so, or?
Then you won't be picked up
because you have to be in the,
for the cable
he's saying
TV.
no.
So.
You have to be in the camera.
Okay.
Do you have a pointer?
I do have a pointer, yeah. So this was just an overview of Wood Partners. Like I said, we've completed 14 communities here in Massachusetts, over 3,000 units, very active, primarily in the suburbs. All we build is apartment communities for rent. We don't do condos, we don't do single-family homes, we don't do commercial. All we do is Class A apartment communities. Here's just a sample of some of the communities that we've recently built. Alta Union House in Framingham, Alta Clare at the Fells in Stoneham, Mass., Alta Easterly in Walpole, and the Westerly at Forge Park in Franklin, the latter two which were developed and built under the 40B program. As you can see, we build high-end units as well as best-in-class amenities to provide a tremendous experience for the residents and really high-quality construction. Just want to talk briefly before I get into the project about the team. These are individuals and companies that have been with us since we founded the office in 2008 and have really been invaluable to the success that Wood Partners has had locally. As I mentioned, Wood Partners, we are the applicant for Alta Abington Station. I'm joined by Mike Burnett from the architectural team. They're one of the premier architects here in the New England area and one of the largest apartment architects. Alan and Major, who is being represented by Phil Cordero, is our engineer. Bart Lipinski from Grady Consulting is here. He is our landscape architect. Liz Oltman from TEC, they are a traffic consultant. And Debbie Horowitz is our legal counsel from Goulston & Storrs. Brief overview on the location. It's located off of Summer Street between Summer and Central Street, adjacent to the MBTA train station. It's about an 8-acre parcel. It's currently divided by a right-of-way to the parking lot, the train station parking lot known as Monahan Crossing. It's an ideal location, one that really attracted to us. We've been trying to find an opportunity down here in Abington, and we're really excited to be able to have a project here in such a desirable and well-reputable town such as Abington, and to be next to the train and provide smart growth down here in the Plymouth County. The site is ideal in that it allows, obviously, immediate access to the train, but great connectivity to the shopping plaza, which contains a Stop and Shop, Target, Dunkin' Donuts. It can be accessed via the sidewalks on Summer Street, Plymouth Street, or Center Street. So great connectivity around the site for those that are walking or car dependent, or not car dependent. Here's just an aerial of the site, again, just showing that it's primarily wooded area with the pass-through to get to the train station. Project overview, as I mentioned, it is located off of Summer Street, adjacent to the train station. We have this currently designed as 236 rental Class A units and comprised of three 4-story buildings with a central courtyard and amenity building in one of the buildings. There is 2 courtyards located next to one of the other properties. There's 376 parking spaces, surface parking spaces, in addition to private garages. So we're maintaining a 1.71 parking ratio, which we feel is ample, and compared to our recent projects has been more than enough parking for the residents. We will be providing electronic vehicle charging stations spread throughout for those that have EV vehicles, and there will be ample bike storage as well. As I mentioned, all of our communities come with the best-in-class amenities, and this one will be no different. It will be fully amenitized with a state-of-the-art fitness center, work-from-home space, club room, lounge, and as I said, there'll be ample outdoor space with lawn games, swimming pool, grills, and fire pits. As you're aware, we are permitting this under the 40B, which is requiring us to have 25% of the units be designated as affordable to those earning up to 80% of the area median income. And it's important to note that all 236 units will count towards the SHI, the standardized housing inventory for the town of Abington. Here is the site plan. As you can see, you'll enter the site off of Summer Street. You have there's 2 buildings on the right, on the east portion of the site, and 1 on the west portion. The main amenity and leasing office is located in the U-shaped building. We've provided significant landscaping around all the buildings and the perimeter of the site. And we are going to be maintaining that access road. I think it's important to note, maintaining that access road for residents utilizing this right-of-way to get to the MBTA parking lot. So I do want to turn it over now, and I'm going to come back and answer questions, but I'm going to let Phil Cordero from Allen & Major walk you through civil.
Thank you. For the record, Phil Cordero from Allen & Major Associates, civil site engineers on the project. Happy to host this evening in terms of walking through the project details. Mark put forth the basic package, which I'll just add some color and detail to. The plan that's up on the screen in front of you, the red outline represents the entirety of the parcel. It's about 9 acres. Monahan Crossing, the road that divides or connects from Summer Street to the MBTA Abington commuter rail station with the parking field here. That remains the central spine of the site driveway. Current condition, we are vacant on both sides of that driveway. We have wetlands located on the westerly portion, a small pocketed wetland on the easterly, but then a large wet basin that occurs on the southerly side. And we're all part of an integrated stormwater system, municipal system, town of Abington, that runs along Summer Street. Stormwater runoff from Monahan Crossing routes through the wetland area into a water quality swale wetland area until it's connected back into the municipal piping network. So as we were laying out the site, obviously the program elements that Mark put forth in terms of number of units, our goal was to make sure that the buildings were provided for in a safe, traversable fashion for multiple levels, vehicular, pedestrian, and emergency services. So working off the central spine of the roadway, it was easy for us to locate these buildings, essentially creating a roadway main street streetscape feel for the buildings along Monahan, with the parking essentially sandwiched to the side and to the rear of it, as much out of focus as it can be, to really continue that corridor feel for the patrons that will continue to use the MBTA roadway, the roadway to get to the MBTA station, excuse me, with the buildings flanked on either side of it. As part of the development program, we sought to make sure we had adequate parking for the residents of the community. 236 units, we were endeavoring to get a 1.7 ratio of parking spaces per unit. We've done that on the plan that you see in front of you with 376 total spaces, some of which will exist within enclosed garages, which are part of the amenity packages available to residents who will live here, and then certainly providing ADA accommodations. We are looking to improve Monahan Crossing, the streetscape feel, so there will be some added parallel parking spaces along either side of the roadway, along with reconstructed sidewalks where necessary, along most notably the easterly sideline of the site. Westerly, we'll rebuild this portion. We are able to retain a portion of the existing sidewalks that function with the design. So those sidewalks afford us that opportunity that Mark spoke about, which is walking connection to Summer Street, walking as necessary to take advantage of the commuter rail, walking through to take advantage of the retail space that exists off of Center Avenue 123. We wanted to make sure that all of those points are connected, which they are. They are all connected under the accessibility code as well, so they all meet the standards for ADA pedestrian movements. The roadway, Monahan Crossing, the existing connection out at Summer Street will be maintained. The traffic patterns that are there will be maintained, and our traffic consultant can certainly speak to that further later in the process. But there are turning lanes on Summer Street, there's entry movements onto Summer Street, that will all be maintained under existing conditions. And the reason for that, we also want to make sure that the traffic is adequately controlled. Those movements work for the emergency apparatus for the fire department, and we would want to not alter that. As part of the overall site plan improvements, this gets very technical. At the discretion of the board, I'm happy to get into any details here or throughout the process. We're provided a graded site. We're providing a closed drainage infrastructure system, so all of our stormwater runoff, including from the buildings, goes directly to piping networks within the paved areas or underneath Monahan Crossing. We are proposing, maybe a little difficult to see on the grayscale, here and here under our secondary parking field, subsurface recharge infiltration fields. Those are required by state stormwater standards and code and MS4 permits under DPW requirements to make sure we are recharging a certain portion of our stormwater runoff, and we will do it in an underground fashion. Once we fill up these systems as they're allowed to recharge, there are outlets from both of these systems which will drain into wetland resource areas. They'll enter into the swale that is existing, and they'll connect into the municipal supply system. The runoff that we have, or the sloped areas that we have to the back of the buildings, will be graded in such a manner that it slopes off from the terraced building portion, but is maintained in a stormwater swale that redirects runoff so it doesn't allow the water to leave the property. Everything is 100% contained within the property to protect the abutters that are around us and make sure there's no incursion of stormwater runoff. We'll also seek to install these stormwater collection recharge units below the natural existing grade. And that allows us, while still maintaining separation to estimated seasonal high groundwater table, which is required under code, we can make sure that the recharge process is non-impactful to the neighbors, even at the distances shown here on. And we can make sure we can talk through that with the town's engineering peer review as the process continues. What I failed to note, actually, just while we're talking about drainage runoff, is we do have abutters obviously along the westerly sideline of the property. We have endeavored to keep this building placement as far away from that sideline as possible. It's 100 feet at its closest point. And the parking field that we have is just over 50 feet, also at its closest point. The goal is to retain as much of the natural vegetation as possible. We are removing certain areas to allow for some sloping, but we'll continue to maintain that natural landscape buffer as an aesthetic separation between our project and the abutters and our neighbors. As part of our overall efforts to the site, we do need to mitigate wetland resource areas that exist on both the easterly and westerly portion of the site. We will do that through a separate process with the Abington Conservation Commission. They will require a review for impacts to the wetlands, which we will file a notice of intent with them as we go through this process, and they will run parallel. We will be seeking an opportunity to infill some of the isolated wetlands that are on site, but we will be replicating them in a one-to-one fashion. So for each square foot lost, we replace square foot in kind, which is the stormwater and the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act standards. So we'll look to be vetted by them through that process. As we move through the site planning process, we certainly will have utilities on site serviced municipally. There is a 10-inch sewer system located in Summer Street. We would seek to connect our sewer supply system into that municipal system. There is an 8-inch water line that runs down the center of Monahan Crossing, including a stub that was left at the northerly point for future development. We will seek to utilize both of those. Our next steps in those process, now that we've filed this application, begun this process, is to now sit down with the DPW director and also the Abington Joint Water Works and assess the water system, assess the sewer system, work through the capacities that are in both of those, conduct a hydrant flow test, which will determine the exact pressures, the operating pressures of that water system, and work through the technical details as to how this project can comport with the municipal system that's out there without overburdening it or impeding any of the functionality that the residents of Abington currently enjoy. At the same time, our next step will be to work with the Abington Fire Department. We want to sit down with the fire department and ask their assistance in terms of locating fire hydrants on site to their liking, strategically placed around the site to make sure they are utilized properly on their behalf. We do have them noted on the site plans, our best attempt at locating them based on familiarity and experience, but we'll sit down and review that with them. In the last couple of days, we've also reached out to the fire department and obtained a copy of their emergency apparatus profile in terms of turning radii, wheelbase, etc. And we've put together a vehicle swept path analysis for this site plan, so we can certify, certainly to them, but also to this board, that this site meets fire turning radii standards, and the apparatus can get to all points of this site should an emergency condition occur on the grounds or in the upper floors of these buildings. So we have that work ahead of us, and we are certainly prepared to undertake that. And then once we step away from the local authority, we will work with National Grid for service connections for the electrical and the gas. We will seek connections from both of those. We have overhead wires that enter the property at the intersection with Summer Street and Monahan Crossing. We'll seek to bring those over to the property and then put them underground. It increases the reliability. It removes some of the susceptibility to wind damage and fallen limbs on wires, and would certainly want to bring that into this development and then to the residents that live within it. So we have a number of steps to go through. As the civil site engineer, we look forward to working with the town's selected peer review or the town's consultants, whomever they may be, on all of the technical aspects that will be part of this site. And I'm happy, again, before I step down and turn it over to my other associates, to get into any of the technical data if you'd like this evening, or we could discuss it at future meetings once the consultants have started to weigh in. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to introduce Mike Burnett, the architect on the project.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm Mike Burnett. I'm a senior partner at the architectural team. We're a local 100-person firm. We've done 150,000 units of housing up and down the East Coast, primarily in New England. And I say that not to show off, but we're a residential design firm. That's what we do. It's very different from a church and city hall and buildings that want to stand out in the community. We build communities and take our cues from the broader community around it in developing all of the designs that we work with. And as we know in New England, we're all particular about what we see and what we want around us. It doesn't always mean the same thing, but it means something to be as compatible as possible. And I wanted to echo a little bit on the site plan here what Phil was talking about. The cues here, what a few things in this plan actually do. You can see that from Summer Street, if you imagine the approach as you turn into this property from Summer Street, the best thing about the plan is obviously with buildings that are bigger than some of our neighbors. When you turn onto Summer Street, what you're looking at is you're looking down, again, what feels like a town road with parallel parking, but you're looking at the ends of the building. You're looking down, you're never faced with kind of big mass of a building in some of the longer views, like you might along the tracks. So these are really oriented to kind of allow for that and really create not just buildings that are well laid out, but in terms of the way they feel, that all of that works to bring that scale down. And what you see as you drive through the property, and it's very different from what you see in an aerial here. You never get this perception as you come into this property. So it's very important to create that as a town street and have that main spine feel like a town street. What it also enables us to do is really hide all the parking and the bulk of the parking behind the buildings, both from Summer Street and as you enter down this main street into the commuter lot. So all the bulk of the parking is up against the tracks and up against the parking lot of the T. So even as you drive through the property, again, you get different views and different style of the building and scale of the building, because as you get to the second building to the right, is the opening of the courtyard and the amenity package, and the main amenity package, which again, state-of-the-art. You can see right here is kind of the heart and soul of the campus, with top-of-the-line amenities in today's world. WeWork kind of spaces, community spaces, fitness centers, all of which are also open to that outside courtyard to really help bring the outside in to these spaces and create bright natural light. And also it creates activity overlooking the sidewalk. You've always got kind of eyes on the street that helps make the whole place safer. So we're talking about three four-story buildings here. We also are eager to meet with the fire department. These are wood frame buildings, but they are state-of-the-art, fully sprinkled, of course. State-of-the-art fire detection. Look to get into further detail about how the notification works, how you want to get communicated with directly to provide emergency responders immediate access to whatever they need to deal with the situation. Again, the building's centered in the middle of the site as well. It's very important. We've got 80-foot buffers from our property lines around the property, and over 100, as Phil said, kind of to our immediate neighbors, more residential neighbors. Again, in terms of the feel of the building, what is really important is to take our cues from the community. Those communities are very different from town to town. Abington is different than Braintree, it's different than Hanover, it's different than Kingston. But what we wanted to do is bring in natural materials, and what you see here is trying to use those materials in different ways to make the scale of the building certainly feel smaller and friendlier. So the idea of a kind of a cornice line here starts to bring your eye down more towards street level, in addition, again, to all the activity that you see constantly going on in the amenity areas at the street level. So this is a very active, eyes on the street, very engaged kind of community, not just within itself, but for everybody that's traversing from Summer Street to the train station. Very familiar single-hung windows, clapboard siding, panel siding, variety of materials to, again, break up the scale and work harmoniously to make the buildings feel a little bit warmer as you traverse the property.
And we'll just go over the landscape with
Good evening. My name is Bart Lipinski. I'm with Grady Consulting. We are the landscape architects for this project. I'm only going to take a quick minute to walk you through some of the surface features that we'll see. As mentioned, the scale of the building, we wanted to really create a streetscape in this small neighborhood. Bring the scale of the buildings down. Street trees columnar trees, which will give us the ability to put taller trees closer to the building throughout the site. The dark greens that you see on the plan up in the top right and along the bottom are all existing vegetation that would be remaining. And then for the buildings, the building A is the top left. That's the main leasing offices, amenities. We have enclosed a fenced-in courtyard, which will have a pool, a function patio, a grilling area, fire pit. As we move across to building B on the top right, we have a small courtyard in between the building and the garages where we'll again have a small patio, a fire pit, a little fenced-in area for dogs, and then a little lawn area that could be used for functions or events as well. Again, a lot of street trees. We want to hide as much of the parking, the perimeters, and just really kind of create an inviting area with the limited space we have for the green. Thank you.
We will just touch upon traffic as well, and Liz is going to give kind of a overview of traffic.
Hi, my name is Liz Altman. I am the Director of Transportation Planning for TEC, and we are in the process of preparing a traffic impact analysis for the proposed development. What you see here is the 6 intersections that are within our study area along Summer Street and Center Avenue. These intersections were chosen per the MassDOT guidelines for preparing a traffic impact analysis, so an industry standard for identifying a study area for a development the size of the one proposed. The trip generation that we will be projecting, we will be using the Institute of Transportation Engineers trip generation manual, which is the, again, industry standard for projecting traffic to be generated by a proposed development. We'll be using land use code for mid-rise apartments for the 4-story buildings. This will be a conservative land use as we are not taking any credit for the affordable housing, which sometimes has a lower traffic generation rate. There will be less than 100 trips generated by the site during the peak commuter hours. Census data says that 10% of Abington residents use mass transit currently to get to their place of work. This facility being in such close proximity to the rail station, we would expect more than 10% to be using mass transit to their place of work. However, again, in order to be conservative, we will not take any credit for mass transit use in order to understand the full traffic impact of the site on the adjacent roadway system. Let's see, what else can I tell you? We will be distributing the trips onto the roadway per the journey to work data from the latest census, and mostly 40% to the north and the east, 40% to the south and the west, and then the other 20% kind of dispersed. That's all I can tell you right now until we do more analysis. Counts were conducted at these intersections this week because Summer Street has been closed for a few weeks. And a report will be prepared and submitted to the board and to a peer reviewer, I'm assuming. And appropriate mitigation for the size and the amount of traffic generated by the site will be identified, and that will be provided to the board.
Thank you, Liz. And then lastly, I just kind of want to touch upon some community benefits that come with this project. So first and foremost, this is going to provide some much-needed housing to Plymouth County. We think, there's obviously a shortage of homes and rental options available here in Massachusetts at affordable rents. So not only will this provide units for empty nesters, young professionals, who we think is going to be the primary cohort here is young professionals, either working in Boston, hopping on the train, working up at the South Shore Hospital and Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, and some of the local employers in the South Plymouth County. But we do think a primarily large amount of renters will be young professionals working in the city. We do envision some empty nesters that are selling their homes in Abington and still have families in the area and want to stay, but don't want the burden of home ownership. So we're really excited that we're able to provide, this much needed housing for those type of families and individuals. Like I said at the beginning, this is a smart growth opportunity, being able to provide high density housing that's located on a transit. There is some financial, obviously, incentives to the town, as this project will generate up to $800,000 annually in tax revenue on an ongoing basis, as well as up to $600,000 from the building permit fee to provide for services and help the town's budget. I think another big benefit is, these are high-end apartments. We're going to have residents paying a good rent. They're going to have high disposable income that they'll be spending in town at the local businesses, and will really help support the local business and community. As I mentioned at the beginning, 25% of these units, so 59, will be designated affordable for those earning up to 80% of the area median income. And there will be a preference for up to 70% of those units for local preference for Abington residents. And of course, there'll be the creation of over 200 construction jobs, as well as permanent jobs once stabilized. So a lot of benefits that come with a project such as this. So with that, that's the end of our presentation. I'll turn it back to you, Chairman, and the board, and we're happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm going to ask Amy just to tell us how the process is going to go forward. This is not going to be decided tonight, obviously. It's going to go on for a number of hearings. So I just want, Amy Questle is town council, so I'm just going to ask her to explain how the process will proceed from here on.
Sure. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have, without agreement, we have 180 days to close the hearing, and then we have 40 days to issue a decision. If the applicant is willing, we can enter into extensions of the 180 days and the 40 days. But what we would do right now, the next step would be to hire a peer reviewer. And we would have a peer reviewer based, we would need to do a peer review for civil engineering, wetlands, and stormwater. We would also need to have traffic, and we would do architectural. So we would have to send out all of the documents, everything that's been filed. We'd send that out to the peer reviewer. The peer reviewer would then come back with the peer review report with comments, et cetera, and present that to us at the next hearing. Do we have any idea when the traffic report will be submitted?
Probably early January.
Okay. So, so after we receive our peer review comments, I then suggest that we hold hearings probably once a month for subject matter, and we designate subject matter for each hearing. So the first hearing, normally the way that I do it, the first hearing is civil engineering. So if there's anything, if the peer reviewer finds that the largest fire truck cannot make the turning radius, then that's the biggest thing that needs to be changed. They need to move buildings or something like that. So it's always good to get that out of the way first. So I think we should come back and do civil engineering first. And that, again, civil engineering would be the site layout, the traveling lanes, are they wide enough, turning radius, snow storage, all these things that we dealt with at the last one we did.
It took many months.
Yeah. So, and then, next would probably be, architecture or traffic. Architecture can also be part of, if it's ready, we could do that as part of the civil in the first hearing. But I would not, I wouldn't expect everything to be ready for our peer reviewers to be ready until the February meeting, until the meeting in February, particularly because the traffic report won't be in until January.
So, just based upon, I'm going to ask for public comment tonight, just based on the presentation that was made tonight. Obviously, everybody can come back to each one of these particular hearings we have on each particular subject matter and come back and listen and ask questions at that point in time. But just based on the short presentation tonight, I'll ask some people to ask questions. But first, I'm going to ask if anybody on the board has any questions at this point in time.
I actually do. I wish you said that earlier. My question is, does this road, what is it called, Monahan?
Monahan.
Does that go all the way through? Because I see at the end it has a speed bump.
It connects into the MBTA station.
So it's going to
lot.
go to the parking lot in there?
Correct, yes. And then you can access out through the parking lot onto Central.
And when we're talking about a wetland buffer, and you have a parking lot over it, how is that possible? What is that? I see the wetland buffer here, and you have a parking lot over it.
Just to clarify, sir, when you say wetland buffer,
Yeah.
so under the...
Well, I seem to remember being called wetlands when it was...
It's right here.
Yes,
It's 100% 100-foot wetland buffer.
right.
It's right in the center of the...
Certainly, certainly. So we have wetland resource areas which are located right on the westerly portion of the site. It's this darkened dashed line, runs just underneath this, the tree line clamshell, comes up, runs parallel to Monahan, and then comes back and closes on Summer Street.
It also goes across the street.
There is another wetland pocket that is across the street that is approximately here underneath the building. And under Wetlands Protection Act jurisdiction, any activity proposed within 100 feet of a wetland resource area needs to be permitted. So the buffer line that you're seeing through the parking lot here simply denotes that everything from approximately this point to the wetland line requires specific attention paid by the Abington Conservation Commission.
Okay, in other words, even though it's showing that parking lot, doesn't mean that it's a definite.
It does, nothing is a definite,
Right,
of
right.
course. So what our obligations are as the applicant and the applicant's representative is to reinforce to the Conservation Commission that this, in this specific case, this specific area, can be constructed in a manner that is not adverse to the wetland resource area itself.
And is it important to have that parking area, or you wouldn't have enough parking?
So it is important for us to have that parking area to make sure we have the adequate parking that we're seeking. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
and another thing.
Are you going off of wetlands? Because I have a thing to... I have a
Oh,
comment.
go right ahead.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may, one of the things that this board has to remember is that this is a comprehensive permit, which means it encompasses all of the permits in town that are local. So there is a local wetland protection bylaw, so you will be stepping into the shoes of the Conservation Commission to determine if you are going to waive the wetland protection bylaw. They are asking for it to be waived in its entirety. So wetlands are not just going to be determined by the Conservation Commission. They are going to be determined also by this board whether you're going to waive local regulations. The two, the state permits that cannot be waived are the Wetland Protection Act, Title V, the State Building Code, things like that will not be, obviously will not be waived by this board, but any local, so zoning, for example, the zoning bylaw, they're requesting quite a few waivers from zoning and the Wetland Protection Act, or the Wetland Protection Bylaw in its entirety. And then I just had one, which was that you stated that that you're going to keep the natural vegetated buffer to screen the four-story buildings, and I was wondering, as it exists, will that buffer screen four-story
You
buildings?
just gonna ask that.
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry.
You nailed it, yep.
So I wouldn't purport to give you the exact dimensions via height of these trees. This would be the area that would be remaining in here. I don't know that the full height canopy, through the chair, of course, to answer your question directly, I don't know that height relationship, but we can certainly look into that as part of our homework here.
They look like pretty mature trees, though.
They are in fact mature trees for certain. It is native woodland, so they are pretty tall. But I wouldn't want to indicate that they're even or plus or minus until we've evaluated.
Yeah, because we get kind of nervous when you say you're going to strip the whole, what is it, 9 acres, you said?
So it is 9 acres in total. That does include Monahan Crossing, which is obviously developed. So we would further clear a portion of that number of 9 acres, yes.
Yeah.
And that is perhaps best illustrated, the greenscape is really highlighted through this plan, which will show what areas we would be keeping.
But the areas that you're keeping are wetlands.
Not in their entirety. The wetlands are this pocket and this line through here. Everything to the north of that is not wetland resource area. And then this pocket is in fact wetland because it's a non-alterable pond to us. That pond needs to remain because it's part of the town's stormwater system.
So are you saying that, pardon me on this, but the access to the T-station right now, that's not Monahan?
It is, sir.
Okay.
That is Monahan.
That's what it's called?
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
because I've never heard it called that before, that's all.
It is called Monahan Crossing on several plans
Okay,
that
I just
exist.
never
Yes.
seen it that way, all right,
Yes.
okay.
Anything else, Rich?
No, I'm glad to see the fire department here because a lot of questions for you, but I'm gonna let you do it.
You guys have any questions?
That's all I got.
One
For now.
question,
Yep.
is the wetlands are being addressed, it sounds like. You know, environmental impact statements, I think there's a request for a waiver from that too, is that right? Did I misunderstand that? The environmental impact statement, that would be, you're asking for a waiver from that too? 'Cause that also, encompasses wildlife and that sort of, aspect. I don't know if anybody from the town will be concerned about that, but I was just wondering if there's anything, beyond the request to waive that requirement that you can do or would do for, assessing wildlife in that area. Since it's 9 acres of woodlands and it'd be, mostly covered except for, about 20, it's 62% or something was gonna be covered on that site.
Can I answer? Okay. So, sir, through the chair, to answer the question, the need for habitat study lives within the Wetlands Protection Act.
Okay,
So if we alter certain portions of wetland resource area, buffers, riverfronts, et cetera, that threshold is triggered, and we would be required to study that, and that is part of the state code, so that is not a waivable condition.
okay,
So as we pursue this through the Conservation Commission, if they felt that benefit was there to do an environmental study because of the alterations, we would be required to do that.
okay. Thank you.
Mr. Burbine,
I had one question. first.
okay,
On the traffic study, I noticed where you're not, can you bring that map up?
Maybe?
I noticed where you don't have you're not looking at a study up on Route 18 and Summer Street. That's right now a treacherous intersection as it is, so I just was wondering why that wasn't part of your traffic study.
I do understand that intersection is an intersection of concern for the town. We are projected to put so few trips through that intersection, it's not strictly required to study that intersection per the industry standard guidelines. That intersection has been identified as a place that a traffic signal or some other mitigation might be necessary. It would be beyond the scope of this project to do such a large mitigation at an intersection that's already identified for needing a major overhaul. So, I mean, I can't tell you the exact number of trips that are going through that intersection, but I know it's significantly less than 100, which is the threshold for study.
Would it be something that you'd be open to maybe looking at doing as part of the study, or?
for the old one? Yeah, I think I brought
I don't
that
know
up.
that we would tell you anything that you don't already know about that intersection, and we would say,
This is the stuff I brought from the old one, I don't know if it's in there.
but it's something that, we could discuss with the peer reviewer if he felt that that was an important intersection from an impact standpoint. But we would certainly be open to discussing that with the peer reviewer and, any technical details.
I think it was in
Thank you.
this. Could I ask one?
Hold on, okay. I know, but we're gonna get to that, just let the board do their.
How many, where were we, 40 Bs are we short right now in the town?
How many units?
Yes, exactly.
7 or 8, I
You know,
think.
Scott? 8?
7 or 8?
Yeah, it's a small.
And that doesn't include the project that we had 2 years ago, correct? Low Point?
I don't know if that's included or not.
Amy, do you know that number?
I would have to, so I would know that, except for the fact that, I don't know if that comprehensive permit told because of the state of emergency, but no, it wouldn't be, because it was over a year ago, and they haven't pulled building permits yet, so it's gotten knocked off the SHI, because it's over a year.
So those units wouldn't be
They
included.
might not be included. I don't know
I think-
I don't know if the SHI, if the units, if they're considering the state of emergency and giving us some more time, I'd have to check.
Yeah, I think we really need to find out what the number is. I mean, that's kind of important to this
I
project.
will. I can do that tomorrow.
No, I think it's in this. I keep looking.
Any other questions from the board at this point? If not, I'm gonna open it up to the public. We'll go row by row. Chief, you can go first if you want. Sit in the- Sure. How much time do I have?
You have hours, sir.
Well, as I said, we're gonna be back here numerous times, so try to keep it based on what was made in the presentation tonight, as we proceed.
I want to thank the board or the committee, I'm not sure the entity, the project people for coming up with this. You've certainly put a lot of work into this. This is kind of where we left off over the last several years of the other project that was proposed for here. And in my mind, my memory, it kind of appears where we left off, and then we've kind of added a bit to that. The first thing I want to do, and it's using, I think, your first or second slide. Could you get either your very first or second slide, which was, I think it had the different communities that you had done these projects in. And this is just from your own words. One more. Yep. So, okay, thank you. And again, I want to thank the architect for pointing out that each community is different. And I agree with that. And the first thing I picked up on this was Abington is not any of these towns. We are certainly not Framingham. We are not Wareham, Watertown. The closest we came in the very couple of seconds that I saw was Walpole. Walpole has about the same call volume as Abington at 3,000. We're actually a little bit higher. Walpole also has 10 more firefighters in the department than us. So I'm just trying to put this project in context for what it's going to do for the town of Abington. This is going to be the largest buildings we have, height-wise, that we have in town. We do have other apartment complexes in town. Nothing four-story with a truss roof. Above that, we have 4 other 4-story buildings in town, 2 at 585 Chestnut Street, which are both Class 1, basically non-flammable construction. We have the New England Art Building at 10 Railroad Street, which is 4 stories with a flat roof. 585 Chestnut is also a flat concrete roof. And we have 200 Whale Street, which is also 4-story. It's an old mill building with a flat roof. We have nothing over the height of a 4-story building, with the exception of the 3 towers, the former water towers at the New England Art Building, which are fully sprinkled. Which brings me to my first question, is for the architect, I believe, what type of sprinkler system are you proposing for this entire project? Full 13, not 13R? Absolutely. Okay, so the entire attic spaces are going to be fully sprinkled? Okay, that helps. Thank you. I do have concerns with the height. Our aerial truck is 100 feet. Our mutual aid partners are also 100 feet. We can certainly hit it. However, that's 100 feet straight up. We never do anything vertically. You have to understand, we have to put the aerial truck back, the body of the truck, the apparatus back, and it's the reach going over. It's an angle. I do have some concerns, and can we go back to the main, I'm going to let you do it, just a plot plan? Right there. I'll have your pointer, I'm sorry. Thank you. Which one is it? Okay. Stand by. All right. So my question now is the main Monahan Road, and I somehow missed this in looking at the drawings I had, but I didn't realize you're going to have parallel parking on both sides of that street. What is the total width of that street, not including the parallel parking? In other words, from car to car, assuming there's a car on each side of that Monahan Road, what is that full width at that point?
Chief, it's 26 feet travel.
Okay. And again, we're gonna have to look at it. I just sent today the apparatus specs to, did they go to somebody today?
One of our gentlemen.
Okay, that just got sent today, so obviously we don't have the apparatus, turning apparatus, radius, the apparatus radius turning range drawings are like that, so we're gonna have to review that, obviously. Because I wanna make sure we're able to get to, that's a significant height with a very short, narrow area to get, because all of these buildings are surrounded by cars, which is gonna limit where we can place apparatus. God forbid we have a large fire in any of these buildings. This is a major fire, and we're gonna, minimum probably 4 ladder trucks, and that's not engines. Engines are gonna be in the multitude of that. To try to get them in there, that can be tight. So that is a concern. Have you considered perhaps not having a large peaked roof or having 3 stories, not 4?
We have. We felt it was necessary to have the 4 stories to provide the total density that we're seeking given the location on the trail.
Chief, is that considered a street? Or is that a paper street? Is it?
My problem with this is it doesn't go completely all the way through. It's kind of a it dead ends into the parking lot, which, yeah, you can eventually get back to 123 on the Center Ave. You're
But it's
going
not
through all that
considered a
parking.
street, though. I mean, is it in your street book? Is it in your,
Currently, no, there's nothing on it. It's just an access way to the T.
okay, I just was wondering, because if it's a street, they also have plowing in the wintertime, and they can't park on the streets.
I'm more concerned for, if we have a fire anywhere, I'm gonna hit the wrong button. Anyway, right now, and I know we're gonna discuss this, we'll fix this. There's one hydrant, I believe, located here in the middle, and they're gonna propose a hydrant like down here and up here or something like that. I need a hydrant here and here, so that any mutual aid companies coming in from Rockland, Whitman, Weymouth, Hingham, wherever, they're gonna grab a hydrant here, they're gonna grab a hydrant here, we're already connected to here, or up here, depending. We're gonna need that water supply coming in, because Weymouth had a fire like this about 3 years ago at the new complexes under construction at Southfield. And they didn't have enough water for this. Some of the issues on that were there were dead-end hydrants, and both hydrants that I saw proposed, one for here, thereabouts, I could be off, but they're both a dead-end hydrant. What that means is there's a main water line that runs from Summer Street coming up here, the main water line comes off here where the current hydrant is, and they're gonna put one pipe going up to a hydrant there and one pipe coming down to a hydrant here. So if we're on this hydrant and we're trying to pump 1,500 gallons a minute, that's only coming down one pipe, whether it's an 8-inch main, 12-inch main, whatnot. Versus if we get them here and here, hopefully it's a looped system and we may be able to get water coming from 2 sides. That's what occurred in Weymouth, and that's one of the main reasons they did not have enough water to sufficiently fight that fire in that building under construction. That building under construction was not as large as the upper left building here. This is a massive proposal for what we have available for our 6 firefighters on shift, assuming they're not at the hospital. One of my other questions I had is the 12-unit parking garage up here. Is that going to be sprinkled? Which I'm going to defer to my fire prevention guys. 5,000 square feet? That's under sprinkled, I think. I think that's under sprinkled. My concern on this is a large 12-bay or 6-bay, 12-vehicle garage. So it's going to have 6, correct me if I'm wrong on this is my understanding. It's going to have 6 garage doors, but they're 2 bays deep. One bay is going to be a maintenance shed area and you can park a vehicle. The other ones, you can put your Beamer and your Mercedes in there when they go on holiday, or they're going to have their big truck and they're going to have a boat. My concern is, especially not sprinkled, is if we get a fire in that and there's 12 vehicles in that one building, regardless of whether they're separated or not, they're going to have to be separated, I think, by 2 layers of sheetrock, fire code sheetrock. That is a massive fire in very close proximity to this building, and it's not sprinkled. Currently, I think every commercial garage we have in town, most of them are sprinkled, and they're not going to be that densely packed. I'm not as concerned about these parking garages here, because that's a single bay. If there's a fire there, we can just hit it. It's not 2 cars or 2 vehicles deep. And if you get a boat behind a car or just 2 cars deep, not in a sprinkled building, that is an incredibly difficult fire for any fire department to fight. And then we're gonna put it in close proximity to a very large building. I'd like to reconsider those buildings if we could. We're not gonna solve this tonight, but this is just the other concerns I had, Mr. Chairman, you also hit it, is the Route 18 not being included in that traffic study. Can you pull the traffic study back up? Thank you very much. So, I think the fire department, and I can't speak for the police, but I think they'd be right with us. We, I think, would be also requesting why this is not studied right here. Now, obviously, this is Walnut and Summer Street. This is a four-way stop sign. If we're taking the effort to study this, where do you think all this traffic is gonna go? It's all dumping out on Route 18. We all know that. So that is critical. You know, that, I think, is somehow gonna be included in this, and to make sure that that already extremely busy road, anybody in Abington knows that section intimately, that needs to be protected. And I don't care if we're adding 100 cars a day or wherever, that number, my gut feeling sounds low, but especially during peak times, that is a huge risk, I think, for public safety there. And, you know, then you're counting during school times and whatnot. That would be a concern we had. I just want to double check the notes that I took here, because that may be it initially. Deborah, Captain, do you guys, anything I missed? All right, I think that was the notes I had on that page. There's nothing else I'm missing. I think I covered them all. But,
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
one follow-up question. Are the, for the traffic people, or, for the designer, are the parallel parking spots along Monahan Drive, are those counted in your 1.7?
They are, yes.
And are your garage spaces also counted for your 1.71?
Yes, ma'am.
So if you didn't have the parallel parking spots along Monahan, Chief, you would then have access to one side of each building, correct?
It would make it easier.
Yeah, it would be like a fire lane.
I don't want to duplicate what we're seeing at Southfield, and I'm not picking on Weymouth, but anybody that's been down in Southfield proper to see that very large greenway, I was actually there last night, that very large, green, beautiful greenway, I don't know what you call it, and then there's parallel parking, and there is a very tight runway, you know, roadway to get through, one vehicle. And I know Rich knows any, you know, whether it's a medical emergency, certainly a fire. I'm not gonna pick on my brothers in blue, but the first cruise is gonna park right there and the entire thing is shut down. Or the first fire ramp is shut down, if you can fit through. The other issue with that, and it's gonna be an issue, is there enough width to get the outriggers out from an aerial truck? Because I don't think there is. But
And how wide are you with the aerial out? Do you guys know?
Top of my head, I don't see.
Right.
That one I'm not prepared for. You got me. That's a good one.
Well, it's probably 5 feet on each side.
It
or
is, yeah,
somewhere around
in
there.
addition to the width, so. But people get creative when they park a vehicle.
Right.
And this is prior to winter, and then you add some snow on top of that.
Yep.
These are the concerns that we run into. It's Murphy's Law with the fire department. If it's gonna go wrong, it will, and we're gonna run into it. And we're just trying to prevent this now while it's on paper, so that when we're stuck with this for the rest of the town's history, we're not dealing with things that we wish we could have tried to take care of prior.
Thank you, Chief.
Any other questions for me, just while I'm up here? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Anybody else who would like to ask a question or speak? Yes, ma'am? Just come, name and address, you gotta come up to the podium and give your name and address, please.
Fran Cronin, 458 Summer Street. I just had a question about the traffic study timing. I understand you want to have a hearing in February, but I know we had an issue with the other development where the traffic study was done when school wasn't in session. And if the report is going to come in the 1st of January, school won't be in session. So it would seem that it would make more sense to wait until January to schedule the traffic study.
Can you address that?
Yes. The accounts are being done this week, or they were done earlier this week, and school is currently in session. So the
Summer Street, because I live on Summer Street, was closed today.
was closed. The accounts were done when it was open. We had a little window, and we took it. So the schools were open when we did the counts this week.
Having lived on Summer Street as long as I have.
Frank, can you just so people at home can hear too, because they're interested.
Any traffic studies that have been done in the last 3 months on Summer Street are completely inaccurate, including what would have been done today. Because there has been so much less traffic, because nobody wants to cut through and get
They're
caught
avoiding it,
and
right.
move around. We all do that. So if we're gonna do a traffic study, it needs to be done at a time when it's accurate.
And I do agree with you. I mean, I drive down and it's a mess right now. To drive down, it's all dug up and it's all uneven.
Right, so
People are avoiding it. Right.
So it's not accurate, and we can't make decisions based on something inaccurate.
It's as accurate as I can do right now. We under a little bit of a time constraint with the timing of the application. The roads probably won't be paved at this point until the spring. I don't know when the DPW is planning on putting a new top coat on, and if they're not finished. It's gonna be this spring, so, that we've had a window of time when that everything was open, on Summer Street, and we have prior counts that we can look and see if there was anything completely out of the ordinary. So that's what we're trying to do the best we can with the information and the time that we are in getting into Christmas and the schools being closed and whatnot. So to my knowledge, the road was fully open. I will again look at prior counts to see if there's anything completely out of the ordinary, and then I will, of course, make adjustments for that.
But as a side note, I mean, these people do live there. And I personally, as a resident of Abington, have been avoiding that area myself because of what's been going on there. So, I mean, that does have to be taken into consideration.
Thank you for that, and we will, we definitely will have to adjust for COVID conditions as well, because there is some, we're finding, more and more people are going back, and the traffic is returning to normal, but they're still between like 5 and 10% below 2019 traffic, so we will have to account for that.
Do you know what the level of service is for that intersection right now?
The intersection of Summer Street and 18?
Yeah.
From the prior study, I understand that there's some delays on the Summer Street approach. But I have not studied it myself.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? Yes, ma'am. Hey.
Hello. How you doing, everybody? My name's Wendy Happel, and I live at 40 Adams Street. I am a resident in town. I'm also chair of the school committee, so I'm here to represent both. I had a couple of questions. Well, I just wanted to actually reiterate what our chief said, and that is Abington is not like Melrose, Watertown, Framingham, Stoneham, Walpole, Franklin, Andover, or Wakefield. Melrose is a city with 29,000 people. Watertown is a city with 35,000 people. Framingham has 72,000 people. Stoneham has 23,000 people. Walpole has 26,000 people. Franklin's a town with 33,000 people. Andover's a town with 36,000, and Wakefield's a town with 27,000. These cities and towns have major access to highways, including Routes 93, 95, 128, the Mass Pike, Route 9, Route 20, and Route 1. Most, if not all, of these routes also offer double lanes on both sides of the highway, which our routes 123, 139, and 58 do not. I just wanted to clarify it because I didn't see it specified how many units of the 177 will be 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3 bedrooms. Is there a way to find that out?
Yep, I'm sure somebody could answer that question.
And that's, I wanted to know both, the ones at the regular price and the ones at the 40B price.
Sure, through the chair.
Yeah.
So we have 48% one bed, so like I said, primarily we think it's going to be young professionals working in the city. So we have 48% one bedroom units. We have, there's 41% 2-bedroom units, and 11% three-bedrooms. And of those unit mixes, 25% of each will be required to be affordable.
Thank you.
Evenly distributed.
Okay, evenly, thank you. Also wanted to know, will the construction be union?
We are our own contractor. We self-perform, and we are an open shop contractor, and we allow all parties to bid.
Okay. I'm going to give you some numbers. Now I'm going to speak as the chair of the school committee. So I just want to see about the numbers and the information that I give you from here on out, if it could also be added to the peer reviewers' notes. So within the past 6 years, well, 6 years ago, we established a new middle high school pre-K, and within that time, we've had a 12% increase over the past 6 years. So in the 2016 to 2017 school year, we had 1,845 students. This 2017 to 18 school year, we had 1,947 students. The 2018 to 19 school year, we had 1,960 students. The 19 to 20 school year, we had 2,054 students. The 20 to 21 school year, we had 2,071 students. And the 21 to 22 school year, we had 2,069 students. So this is more than 12% increase in 6 years, or 224 students in grades K through 12. Growth at this rate requires additional teachers. In the near future, continued growth would also mean the need for additional classroom spaces in Abington, and we would be looking to make an addition to our schools or to build a new one. And if anybody remembers, our last school, we did get a grant, but it was over $80 million. So I don't know if we really were trying to maybe get a new fire station, and I don't know if we can afford a new school on top of it. We do have two schools that aren't in use. They were given back to the town. They have asbestos in it, so they would have to be torn down. If we were even to consider going back to that area, we would not be able to use those schools again. So that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Good luck.
Anybody else have any comments out in the public? Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is John Norton. I live at 84 Progress. Thank you
What's
for
your last
having
name,
me.
sir?
Excuse me?
Last name?
Norton, N-O-R-T-O-N.
Thank you.
I do have a question for the board and for the developers. Could I see the site map, please? Where I live on Progress Street, I was wondering, you said 4 stories, and how far back from Progress Street, the property line, are you building? And how high will it be? And will that be overlooking the people that live on Progress Street?
So the building is 100 feet back from the property line. We're maintaining 50 feet of the tree line. The roof, do you have the roof height? 51. So as we discussed previously, we don't know the size of those trees. That's something we can look at. But we believe that'll be ample buffer to mass the buildings, given the 50-foot setback and pretty.
So 100
mature
feet
trees.
and 50 feet would not, you wouldn't be able to see it from the houses on Progress Street?
We do not believe if you were standing in your backyard, you would be able to see that far distance. We could look at what that angle would be, but given the mature nature of those trees, we think it would be pretty well hidden from your backyard.
Thank you. My other question to the board is, this is being built under the 40B project, and originally this project was shut down. It was shut down immediately. And since we put a 40B on it, how is that different from the project that was proposed before?
I'm gonna let town council answer that question.
And the other thing I do want to put on top of that, if there's anything, I hear nothing but there's nothing you can do. It's 40B, nothing you can do. The courts, it's the law. They can get by going over environmental things and whatnot.
Well,
I was wondering what we could do, or why is it different with 40B compared to the project that was before?
Well,
I
she'll
think-
explain to you.
I think town council can explain.
Thank you.
Why we're in this position.
Yeah.
So under 40B, the statute and the regulations provide that there's a presumption of affordable housing is the presumption outweighs the local concern. The local concern would be, unfortunately, schools and school children are not allowed to be considered under the local concern. It's specific in the regulations. The local concern would be health and safety, environmental, and the other difference between the last project and this project is that under 40B, they're allowed to ask for waivers from local bylaws, meaning the zoning bylaw. And under the other project that was before the planning board, that came in under the bylaw, so they had to follow the bylaw. Here, they can ask for waivers from things like setbacks and parking and density, things like that. And then the only way to stop or change 40B is to have your legislatures stop them.
So, and the reason we're in this position is because we don't have enough affordable housing in Abington.
So if you did 10% of what was short of the 326 units, is that negotiable? I mean, is that something that we should be looking into doing as a town?
We're not sure right now where we stand on the number, so.
Approximately,
Did you mean 236? You said 300?
well, you said that we need to get to 10%.
Right.
Okay, and if you do 10% of the number of units they're proposing, is that what we're required to do? Or is that what, that's what I'm trying to get at.
No, so there's the subsidized housing inventory has, they have from the 2010 census, they have a year-round housing number, and we have to have 10% of that has to be affordable.
And we don't have a number where we're at now.
We do not, we're close to 7 or 8.
Okay.
And then, however, fair or bad news, it could be that, unfortunately, the 2020 census is coming out. And
So
so
that
once the 2020
change.
census comes out, the year-round housing number changes, so that number's gonna get even more elusive.
But are we legally only provided to go to that 10%? Do we have to go over it? And
No,
with
I see
using
what
this
you're
as a
You don't have
4B?
to go over it, you can, to protect yourself for the next census that comes out, but, once you reach the 10% of affordable housing, it's one of the, there's numerous safe harbors, but, that would be one of the safe harbors that the town, could achieve, and a project like this could be denied.
And that's the only way?
There's other ways, which is the 1.5 GLAM, there's, housing production plan, there's other safe harbors, but not.
Okay.
not
And
as-
then just to go a little further as to what happens if we were to deny this, if you could explain what happens.
I do realize it's a very small chance of winning in court against 40B.
Well, that's what I want.
We don't go to
I want
court.
town council to say.
Or litigation.
We don't, unfortunately, if this project is denied or this project is conditioned in a way that the developer finds that it makes the project uneconomical, then the developer, the applicant, will go to the Housing Appeals Committee, which is not a court, it's a Housing Appeals Committee, it's an adjudicatory, and the Housing Appeals Committee is extremely developer friendly. And so what would happen is they would most likely get what they applied for. If the project is conditioned, working with the developer to get conditions that would benefit the town, then the project would be built that way.
So it kind of encourages towns to work with developers to try to.
Sure, but developers should work with the town.
Yeah.
Like they said, this is not Bethune,
We're
this is
hopeful.
not Walpole,
We're
this is
hopeful.
Abington. It's a very small town, and there's very, I don't think you should just be able to go over loopholes because you file for 40B. And I understand that's the law, and I understand that, but I think the town should work together with the developers, or the town should work within itself to, make, progress happen.
But as
instead of
town
something
council
else.
said, there are conditions we can put on there, and as long as they're reasonable, then we're gonna be okay.
Okay.
So just as an example, the last decision that we did for 40B, I think the decision was 30 to 40 pages long. So we don't just,
We just don't,
this isn't
we
a,
just wipe
No,
it.
I
We
understand.
don't just say, oh, okay, it's not gonna be that way.
and this is just the first night.
Exactly, and I hopefully we have some of our legislators that we vote for in the town of Abington come up and show up these. I think that would be very helpful.
And believe me, these folks are listening to all these comments too, and they're taking those.
I believe they are, and they should.
Yeah.
They should. And town of
And
Abington
we're
should
not
know
the
this.
only ones. I mean,
I understand.
there are
I
other
understand.
towns
I just wanna
that
make,
have to
this
go
is-
through this.
This is a small town, I understand, and I do understand the 40B's laws, but I think laws, the townspeople should have the final say. That's all I have to say.
Thank you,
Thank you.
thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I had a question. Are you fencing the area in between the project and the MBTA red line? I don't see any fences.
explain to the chair, there is currently a fence along the rail fence that exists today.
And you won't be touching that. That's on their property, I take it?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions from the public at this point? Okay, so what's our next step? Amy?
Our next step is to continue this to a time and date, a date and time certain, which I would suggest would be sometime in February. And then, in the meantime, we will get peer review proposals, and then at your first meeting in January, you can simply just approve one of the peer review proposals as an administrative matter.
If I may, just through the chair,
Yes.
to town council, will you be selecting peer reviewers tonight that we can start communicating and transmitting documents to?
No,
Okay,
we don't have anybody yet, but we
Okay.
will. We'll let you know
okay,
as soon as we do.
thank you.
The last time we used Tetra Tech, we used
Tetra
Davis
Tech.
Square. I think that was it. I think Tetra Tech handled all the travel.
Yeah, they did
Yeah.
that's all Tetra Tech.
Yeah. But I haven't reached out to Sean yet, I will. And we have other places that comes, but we'll let you know.
So do you, oh, I'm sorry, Chief.
So just on the peer review, as we get deeper in this, I'm
Do
assuming.
you want to get up to chief? Do you want?
On the peer review, as we get deeper in this, and we get more comprehensive building plans, we'd also like to have a fire protection and peer review as well.
That's great.
Okay.
Thank you. So do you guys want to stick with the Thursday night,
Sure, I do.
Deal?
I think, yeah.
February 17th? Is that, our regular meeting is February 10th, so it would either be February 3rd or February 17th.
I would think the 17th would make more sense if
17th, huh? I don't know if I'm away or not, so.
The school vacation is the next week. just
Okay, good.
so
All right, I'm not away then.
Everybody knows. That's fine with me.
Either one?
What was?
17th, is that okay
Seven-
with everyone?
what was the other
Okay.
one?
The 3rd.
Oh, I would go with the 17th. I'm not sure the 3rd will give us enough
All right.
time.
So we'll go with the February 17th, just so everybody knows, our next meeting will be February 17th, 7 o'clock, here in the Cotter room.
And thank you all for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
We gonna vote on that at all, or
Yes,
anything?
we have to vote to continue.
Yeah. Make a mo- if you want to
Just
make a
want to
motion.
thank
No,
you.
you guys are
Chair,
voting.
members
You
of the
guys are
board. Thank you to the community for coming out. Thank you.
Are we talking?
I had a question. What's the address of the?
Oh, can we hold on one second,
Can you guys
please?
hold,
Hold
can
on
everybody
one
be quiet for
second.
1 second? We have to take a vote, so.
Hold on one second, I'm sorry.
Just hold your quiet voices here. Go ahead, Rick.
I move that we continue this hearing until February 17th at 7 PM to give time for the peer review report.
Is there a second? I'll second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Now somebody can make a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a
can do
motion
that.
to adjourn.
Seconded.
A second.
All in favor?
Now, tonight I can see matter of Christmas, right?
Now-